What's up, guys? Coach Jared here with the Unfair Advantage podcast. I don't know if Joe's listened to any of these at all. Probably not, because we only have like 10 listeners, so that means he would be 10% of the listening base. But anyways, if he hasn't listened, I'll explain to him what the Unfair Advantage podcast is here in a bit. But welcome, my good friend Joe. Is it Gonrowski? Gonrowski. Sorry,
Close.
I mixed up some of the.
Most people just go right to the Gronkowski.
It's
like everybody can get that one.
Yeah, I knew there was an R.
Yep.
I just didn't know where the R was, basically.
It is somewhere in the alphabet soup of my last name.
Are you Polish?
Yeah. Polish last name. So, like, obviously, people recognize that. But I'm a mutt, pretty much like everybody else. Like,
yeah.
A lot of Italian from my mom's side, but yeah, kind of a mutt like everybody else.
Speaking of mutts, so what's your background is a mishmash of a few different things, right? You're here in the Quad Cities going to Palmer Chiropractic School, but I know you have a background that's a little bit more unique than that. So let's go ahead and start going down the rabbit hole. Take us way back to high school, how you started, did you play sports, and then, up to where you're at now.
Yeah, so grew up basically like central Minnesota. I went to Elk River High School, which nobody around here is going to know where that is, but it's like 35 minutes northwest of the Twin Cities. Played football, hockey, and baseball. So was super active all year round. Loved it. Like my days in the summer, like I see all the kids training here. Like that was my day, but it'd be like, go from here, go to a field, whatever field that was for whatever sport, and then maybe like to the rink or something. So it was super fun. It's what I wanted to be doing. Basically, like all my friends revolved around kind of like what season it was in and stuff. So kind of played like a chameleon role in that, where it's like you had a lot of different circles that you could run in.
What would you say your main sport was? In high school.
In high school?
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was into whatever the season was.
Yeah.
Like what
was the sport you were the best at? Maybe it'd be a better question.
in high school, it was probably football.
Okay.
But then ended up getting an opportunity to go play college baseball. And that was like the best decision I ever made.
Yeah. I mean, easier on your body probably, right?
So much easier. And just from like a personal development standpoint, like the things that baseball gives you, like has so shaped how I am today and like how I think about stuff.
What exactly, I guess, are you talking about? I can guess kind of, certain, I mean, I played baseball. There's a lot of patience involved. There's a lot of life lessons in the fact that like failure happens more than success in baseball. Right. But maybe touch on what you feel like you mean by, baseball kind of shaping you. Yeah.
So, I mean, you already hit on the two big ones. So like everybody knows the old adage of like, you get out 7 out of 10 times and you're in the Hall of Fame for baseball. Like right. Everybody kind of gets that. But even to like have a successful career in baseball or like have a successful time playing baseball, like you need to be mentally okay with failing a lot. And then like have, honestly, like for me, a lot of it came back on falling back and trusting on the training that I did and kind of like talking myself into like nobody has trained harder than me. So like I have an advantage when I go out there against them, especially in like, because I ended up pitching in college. So really it's a team sport, but it's that one-on-one. Like it's the only 1v1 thing going on in the entire game, you know? And like, if I could talk myself into, I have an advantage there standing on the mound versus the guy who's in the box that, I've worked harder than you. So like, I've already kind of stacked my deck a little bit.
Right.
And also as a pitcher, I mean, I told myself, I'm like, he might be like the best hitter in the conference or like one of the best hitters in the country. I still have a 7 out of 10 chance of getting him out. I still have. So like, I kind of did like some of the mental gymnastics there to like talk myself into being a little bit more successful and like being confident when I was out there.
But you have to do that in life too, right?
You do, yeah.
Like, I think one of the ones I can relate to is when I got to college, I definitely was not the most naturally smart, like brightest people. Like, I didn't do very well on my ACT compared to some of these guys that I was going to college with. And so it's hard for me to be confident when I was like, wow, they are, so much more naturally bright. But I knew I studied more than most, like almost all of them. And I knew that like I didn't stay out late the night before. Right. And then there's like the curve aspect. And that's kind of where like I'm getting at with this is like, if I just, do what I'm supposed to do, basically, I'm going to end up in, the upper half of this class. Right. And I think that's where like it's almost like what you're saying is like, hey, if I just do what I'm supposed to do, I hit my spots.
Yeah.
I have a 70% chance of getting this guy out. Right.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, baseball in the Midwest, talk about like needing to take pride in your preparation too. That was something that baseball taught me a lot. And I was already kind of like wired that way. Like I liked the aspect of being known as being a hard worker and stuff. But, I'm more than likely in the Midwest going to invest 3/4 of my year in just the chance that the weather's good enough that I get, an opportunity to play for, 3, if we're having a really nice spring, maybe 4 months, at least in college. And then summer ball, you try to find a good place to play and, play around other college age guys that are really pushing you and challenging you. So, but all of that kind of, the preparation was way more of your year than the actual performing.
You said something like, I took pride in being known as like a hard worker, or like that was like, that's, I think, so Alex Hermosi, he's kind of like a big business guy on the internet right now. But he actually started out in the gym space, and that's kind of how I knew of him. Everybody knows who he is now. But anyways, he talks about like, a lot of people wrap their identity up in, I'm Jared, the gym owner, I'm Jared, the athlete, or whatever, right? And then when that thing is over, which I've caught myself, with this, it's like, it's really tough. You kind of go into like this identity crisis but he said like what you could do if you want to be a hard worker, because a lot of people feel like they're lazy or whatever. It's like, well, then wrap your identity up in being a hard worker. And like, I want to be known as Jared, the hard worker. And then it doesn't matter, whether that's in business or in weightlifting or whatever it is, like, I'm Jared, the hard worker. I'm not, it doesn't matter if it's Jared, the weightlifter or whatever. I'm just known as Jared, the hard worker. And if you want to be known as that, then you're going to start, enjoying the process of like being a hard worker. Right. So I guess in your situation, instead of like, hey, I need to wrap my identity around Joe, the baseball player, or Joe, the really good baseball player, right? It's like, if you can just say, hey, I'm going to be Joe, the guy that works harder than anybody else.
Yeah.
You start doing, it's basically, that's the idea with this, is like, that's how you become more process driven and less goal driven. Like everybody says is like something you should do, but it's kind of hard to do in practice until you kind of like, hey, I want to be known as that guy that just grinds,
Yeah. And baseball for me was like, that's, whether you call it like a process or whether you call it like the grind, or like, there's a lot of words that it goes by, but that's what you can control. So in baseball, like, it's kind of defined as like the game of the uncontrollables.
Right.
And like, you need to be okay with that. Cause let's use like a pitching analogy. Like, I could throw, honestly, like the best pitch of my entire outing, and a guy could like nub it and get a hit.
Yeah.
So like, what did I do in that situation that was good? Well, I executed to the best of my ability and the outcome just wasn't what I wanted. But there's nothing, there's nothing wrong with that.
And it's a game of odds. So you do that enough over time, like you throw that pitch enough times, you're going
to get more outs.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's life too. Like to the most part, like, trust me, I mean, this is baseball careers or anything too, where like there are certainly outliers where they get unlucky over and over and over again. But generally speaking, it's like, if you make the right decision over and over again, or you do things the right way over and over again, like, yeah, you're going to have instances where it doesn't work out, But over time, he's not going to hit it off the end of the bat every time.
No.
Right.
And yeah, you just have to trust the work that you put in prior and have developed a system, have developed your process that you're comfortable with and that you can trust.
Yep. So where did you play baseball?
The school is called St. Scholastica. It's in Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay.
Like I said, I was not like a primary baseball player in high school. But I was lucky enough. I had a new high school baseball coach come in my sophomore year who we were not very good my freshman year. And credit to him, like he was a tough coach. He really like turned the program around. And he was honestly a huge advocate for me. Like he wanted me to have an opportunity to like at least look at some college baseball programs.
Yeah.
And he connected me with the coach at St. Scholastica, who basically the biggest thing that drew me to the program that I ended up playing college in was like the culture was amazing. Within the community of Duluth, like it's a Division III college, but the culture that has been developed there has kind of like went out into the community, and like it's very well recognized for like the people that graduate from there. And if you're associated with the baseball program, like
that's looked upon highly.
They know, it's looked upon highly. With that comes pressure though,
right?
Because you're like, you're
on a pedestal.
I want
right?
to, and then there's the spotlight of it too, where it's like everything you might do like dumb as like an 18, 19-year-old kind of gets magnified. But for me, it was only ever a positive experience. And basically I got sold on the team culture and the coach. So I decided to go there for school. They had a great great health sciences. I went there for exercise physiology. I ended up staying there to get my undergrad and then master's in exercise physiology.
Which is like, really why I'm having you on is like you have that background, right? Combined with your sports background and everything else. But yeah, I mean, you did that and then you coached, for how many years have you
So prior to coming to Palmer, I was either in school getting my master's, so basically like coaching part-time, like just like when I wasn't in class, or full-time 2019. So like that's when I would have been coaching through
so
like
6
through
years,
through my undergrad and through my master's, and then full-time after that.
And what was the gym that you coached at up in?
So it's called IST CrossFit. But the IST stood for Impact Sports Training. Okay. So like, I think I even told you this when I met you and I kind of walked in here. I'm like, a lot of it is very similar. Like the foundation was sports training, like youth sports training. You get a good reputation through that. You get opportunities to maybe work with like the colleges or like professional teams in the area. And then I came in after the CrossFit was already established. Gotcha. So like that was kind of like the second arm of the business. And that was like a pretty big part of my role, but I was initially attracted to, I did an internship there in undergrad. And I was really only interested in the sports performance because like I was still a college athlete. Didn't really have any interest in like coaching or doing CrossFit, but because the athletes would finish up when the CrossFit classes would start. And I got to see like the stereotypical, like people showing up for the best hour of their day thing. And I'm like, there really is something to this. So I was knowing I wanted to do strength and conditioning because I wanted to get some hours working with people under my belt to know that I needed to be in a field where I was going to be working with people on a day-to-day basis. The way our undergrad was set up, basically the undergrad exercise physiology was a feeder program for the physical therapy school. Okay. A lot of my classmates did that and like, that's great. But me at, 22, I I didn't want to take that investment on right away until I had worked with people to know that I was in the right thing. And I was honestly more passionate about strength and conditioning at that point.
Right.
So I went all in on that. Luckily had a super good educational mentor. He was one of my professors in undergrad and in the master's program. And he helped me like prepare for the CSCS and like basically got me my job through getting me an internship at IST and then like continuing to advocate for me. Because prior to me getting hired, the only other two hirees were basically also from like his word of mouth and went kind of through the same steps I did.
Okay.
You know, so it was.
So they held this guy's opinion highly.
Highly. And he would shoot us straight too. He's like, you know, I think you guys are meant to like work and help people. So like this would be a great opportunity for you to, you know, even if it's not strength and conditioning in the end, like be able to make an immediate impact on people. So I loved my time there. Like I still stay in contact with a lot of the people who I got to coach, but honestly, you just become friends with them. And like, you know, you build, it's a lot more than like a coach client or a coach athlete relationship. And now coming back to school, like stepping into a doctorate program. I'm so happy that I took the time to like work with people first, because like grinding through like, especially the first year of the program where it's like, it's all labs, all just lecture based stuff. I know that the point when I get into the clinician portion of the program, like that's when I'm going to hit my stride, because like I already know that like people fuel me like that.
I feel like some chiropractors probably they go straight through and like they just don't know how to talk to people or work with people. Right?
I mean,
and that's a huge part of the job.
Huge part.
I mean, it is the job, really. At least, you know, it is the selling part of the job as well, right? Yeah. And I think that, you know, people don't realize that, you know, your ability to interact with people is going to be, and it's the same thing in my job. It's interacting with our athletes, it's interacting with, you know, clients. That is really, you can have your knowledge, but if you can't get it out and it's not even just getting it out, it's getting people to do it, right?
Yeah.
That's the other half of it.
And a huge part of, so me choosing to come back to school and like get some more education and kind of like just like add the clinical side to kind of a lot of how I looked at strength and conditioning already. Like I might be coaching the class, but like we are going through this as much together as is it me like coaching you.
Right.
Because any good coach athlete relationship, there is a lot of reciprocal that goes back and forth. And I am definitely, now not everybody's like clinical philosophy is like this. Like some people are very much so like I'm the doctor and like I'm telling you what to do. That's not really how I see my skills like being put to the best of their use, I guess. Like just as a person, how I am.
To me, all that is like you memorize the textbook and now you spew it out.
Yeah. So, and a lot of the reasons why chiropractic appealed to me is, other than getting like really good chiropractic care and like seeing the benefits of it myself, but more so than even a lot of other like conservative musculoskeletal professions, like I have the opportunity to kind of shape how I want to treat people however I best see fit. Like our scope of practice is really, really wide. And I specifically came here to kind of marry my like strength and conditioning background, and like I'm just a movement advocate for anybody. Like whether it's my family and they want to talk about stuff, like I'm not going to be like, you know, you should be following this program, whatever. It's like, let's like general movement strategy. Like we are always going to be better off if we're doing more. Like we are so meant to move.
100%.
And marrying that with all of the clinical side and like obviously like developing the hand skills to like treat them, and then all of the other things that come along with that, not just the adjusting soft tissue, like dry needling, everything that will fall under my scope that kind of fits like what my end goal is for my patients, where it's like promoting that more active movement-based lifestyle. I could see myself going down any of those roads. But the goal was always go to school so I can marry those two things together, because that's how I want to impact people's health.
Right.
More so than some of the other options that are out there, which there's value in them, but that's where my like heart wants to be.
Yeah,
so that's like what
exactly. Each one, and you're for this one. So knowing what you know now, just to kind of steer it back in the, strength and conditioning realm, since that's kind of what I enjoy talking to you about.
Yeah.
What, knowing what you know now, how would you have trained differently when you were in high school and college?
Oh,
because I know, I didn't really train at all, basically. So I would train a lot differently, but it sounds like you actually did train, a decent amount, but I'm sure you can look back and say, yeah, there's things I wish I would have done differently.
So from like a working hard standpoint, that was never my issue. Like I always loved that. And, especially some of my teammates in college would say like, I was a really difficult teammate to deal with when it came to the training side, because like I did want to be known as like being the hard worker. So I ran through training partners, like not intentionally, but it was just like,
yeah, that's cool.
It's like next man up. Like that sucks.
Because you got training so hard, yes. Or because, or you were being such a dick.
No, because I really, really loved it. And I enjoyed going in after class and training really hard for, honestly, it was probably like 90 minutes to like 2 hours of hard strength training.
Yeah.
Like there was no like, oh, like it's getting kind of long in here. Like I'm going to cut this set. It's like,
I always find that
it's like, screw that. Like I'm going 5 or 10 pounds heavier because that's what I wrote in my book last week. So it's like, I'm going to force myself to be a better version of myself last week.
When we were growing up, though, it was like, there's a lot of, you should only be in the gym for like 45 minutes or whatever the time was at the moment, right? And then you're going to start like eating your muscles or there's some catabolic effect. Yeah. But when we were growing up, that was a big thing. Like it was like, and I remember like people would utilize it as like a way to justify not training hard, essentially. No. They would be like, you're only really supposed to be in there for 45 minutes. Like, I wouldn't want to do another set because I'd be into 50 minutes. And if I'm at 50 minutes, I'm just eating my muscle, right? Yeah. Or it's like, obviously now what we know now, dude, there's periods of my life where I train for 5 hours a day. So
the craziest, this is wild. I don't know. I don't think I ever told you the story about like the squat program that I did when I was in college. Mm-mm. So, I think I started it after my freshman year of college. So like the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, there were some guys, they were powerlifters that like worked out in our school gym. And I got my hands on one of it was like a squat every day type program. And like I think they were like juniors or seniors in the exercise physiology program. And they like printed it off for me and gave it to me. I think it was by, God, I'm blanking on the name. I think it was either a MASH or a Norton program.
Or a Lane Norton.
Yeah, or a Lane Norton program.
Okay.
Because there was like that like squat every day thing was like,
if it was squat every day, I think it was probably Travis MASH.
Okay.
Okay. We'll look it up.
It had to have been a weightlifting program because Sundays were 1RM cluster. Which is hilarious.
That's a Travis MASH program. But basically he took, from my understanding, like we were in the same, like how old are you?
29.
Okay. Yeah. So like same exact time, like he kind of took like his own twist on like the Bulgarian method, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know, you tell me, but basically I remember his being like, it was a conjugated squat every day. So it'd be like a different squat every day, right?
Back squat, no belt, back squat with a belt, front squat, no belt, front squat with a belt, pause, variation, cluster. Yeah. That was basically like what it was. But so the funny thing was, I loved it, and it got me so freaking strong.
So that's what camera can't see, probably those legs, but
yeah,
that's what those legs
I've been telling
from.
you it's hockey. It's this crazy squat program that I did. But they also didn't tell me like when the program's done, you're just like supposed to be done. I did.
So you just kept going
18 months. I did for a year and a half.
Yeah, that's definitely why your legs.
I did for a year and a half, and I loved it because like I started my workout with that every single day, and like I didn't think twice about it. Now, now looking back on it,
yeah,
I was like, holy crap! Like if I were to try to do that right now, I would really wreck myself. But I did it. I was like 19, 20 years old. I was eating a ton. I was sleeping awesome. So like I couldn't have done it at any better time in my life. Like my body was it couldn't be more primed for something like that. And then like my mentality of it is like, I just like doing something that's hard and like seeing if I can, really push myself. And that was just something that was like the one thing that I chose to do in that way.
I know that Travis Mash would talk about how it helped his mobility a lot because it's like you're squatting every day. So I think a lot of people, they struggle with like mobility, and simply because they don't put themselves in those positions too often. It's like the frequency of their squatting or whatever they want to be more mobile in is just not high enough. And it's like, I don't understand like how you expect. It's like, oh, you want to have a better squat mobility, right? Like I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But you squat once a week, so 6 times a week. You don't go into any knee flexion or any hip flexion.
Yeah.
But yet the one time a week that you do, you expect it's like the one day to override the 5 days, right? Yeah. And that doesn't make sense. So I think that helps with the mobility. I have a very similar story. Mine is more, so I get a lot more benefit, or I figured out that I would get a lot more benefit from high volume training. So like for me, like that's more like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're primarily building up to singles.
In that program, yes. And then when I was doing that, I would basically just like, we were given a strength and conditioning manual. It was like our Saints baseball strength and conditioning book. So I would do the squat workout and then I would hit that. And a lot of that.
So you got some volume in.
I did through that, which was also exactly what I needed at that time. I was like,
you like fell into what you needed, basically.
For sure, which is crazy. Which is like how life works.
So I did, when I broke my wrist, I don't know if I told you this, doing a clean when I taught myself how to snatch and clean my freshman year of college when I got into CrossFit. And then I got pretty strong pretty quick. I mean, I had never trained ever. Never trained. Like, I mean, maybe some like curls in the gym. Like, and maybe some bench press, maybe.
Typical like high school boy workout.
I definitely had never squatted in high school at all, like 0 squats. So anyways, but I saw CrossFit. I'm like, I want to get good at this. So anyways, my freshman year of college wrapped up and I had cleaned, I want to say my PR at the time was 265 pounds. So 120 kilos basically. Which is pretty good for going from no training to that right in 1 year. Now I didn't make any contact with the bar.
That's
like
great.
No contact, right? And I don't think I even hook gripped even. I don't know. But anyways, I remember it was the first week home from college. Me and my buddy went to our high school gym.
Yep.
And I was trying to PR 275, trying to show off really is what I was trying to do. And I had no form, no contact. So the bar's way out in front of me. Elbow hits my knee on a clean at the bottom and just snaps my wrist. Just scaphoid just snapped. I could hear the whole gym heard it. Yeah. And so I told and I've probably told the story on the podcast before, but I told my wife, I called her, I'm like, hey, I broke my wrist. I need to go to the doctor. And I'd never broken a bone before, but when you broke a bone. Like, she's like, how do you know? I'm like, because it sounded like a bone snapped in half. So anyways, went and got a cast. They said, unfortunately, this is your scaphoid. It's a small bone in your wrist. It doesn't get a lot of blood supply. So I was in a cast for like 12 months. It's funny, actually, Becca, it was 5 days before my birthday. It would have been 5 days before my 19th birthday. And she had bought me a CrossFit gym membership for my birthday. I'd never belonged to a CrossFit gym, but I was getting into it. And at college, I just did it at the local, at the rec center. And the gym that she got me a membership to was this gym.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you said
it was
this
Quad City
specific,
CrossFit.
Yeah, it's like kind of
which OC3 spawned off of.
Yeah.
Obviously I couldn't utilize it really, cause I broke my wrist, but yeah, that's kind of crazy story. But anyways, when I was in the cast for 12 months, all I could do was squat. I was in the cast and it was over your thumb too.
Yep.
So I could wedge my little thumb thing on the side of the bar. So every time I'd go in to get a new cast, the lady would like be like, "Why is it all worn down like right there?" Because I was squatting with my hands like this
Yep.
on the weights. But I ran that Smolov squat program that like, you know, and it's like 4 times a week, high volume squatting. And my squat went up like 100 pounds in like 12 weeks. It was crazy. And then again, though, kind of a story like yours, like I just kept running it in perpetuity. And like I didn't realize you were like not supposed to just do that, and I just kept running it and running it and running it, and like my legs got a lot stronger now. Eventually, you know, there's probably a reason I had hip surgery 6 months ago, but you know what I'm saying. I just don't think people realize how hard you can work, and you know how like what your body's actually capable of.
I'm definitely of the opinion, and that's why like when I did kind of like transition from baseball to like working at a CrossFit gym, like I naturally kind of gravitated towards doing CrossFit. I think generally like our lives they can be stressful, but they're pretty easy, like physically
100%.
nowadays. So like finding something to push your physical self is super important now more than ever.
Yep.
Kind of going back to like my philosophy with like the clinical hat, it's like that's why I really do want to advocate like a movement strategy for people is they might not be hearing it from anybody else. So like I want to be that person who's like at least like putting the spark in their head, like, you know what, like it is good for me to go for a walk in the evening.
Yeah.
You know, like I am physically able to do that. Or like if I want to, you know, go start working with that physical, like, you know, that personal trainer or whatever at a gym, like I should do it. And that's why I still, you know, try to get in the gym as much as I can. I definitely am not as gung-ho as I used to be, but I still know that even on the days that I don't want to exercise, I will be better off for it.
100%. And you created a base, and I think a lot of people don't realize like I think we both, you know, don't train nearly as much as what we used to train, and you know, I think a lot of kids ask me if I ever train, you know, but again, like we were lucky enough to build such a base when we were young, and so I try to preach to a lot of our athletes, like if you train now, you'll set yourself up to where, you know, someday you're gonna have a better physique than 90% of people. And be healthier than 99% of people simply because what you did now, right? It's like the same way people preach investing early with their money. It's like if you can really do it now, you know, like again, I don't do a whole lot. I don't, you know, train nearly. I mean, I think there's research showing, I don't know, man, they've tried it a bunch, and I think they've gotten down to where it's like you could do like 1/8 of the volume that you used to be able to do and maintain a muscle, like maintain hypertrophy.
Yeah.
Like it's something stupid low. Like to build on it, it has to be increased, but to maintain it, it's like stupid low.
So I'm a little bit over a year out now from my like Achilles tendon repair.
Which you tore box jump?
No, I was running in a cut.
Okay, that's right. So freak things happen, right?
Crazy. Yeah, just super freak thing. Like the day I walked in the gym, felt totally fine, and whatever, it happened.
This was not at my gym.
No, it was not.
I just want to preface that.
I was up visiting Kirsten and her family for Easter.
Oh, really?
So I did it like over that Easter weekend.
Wow, that stinks.
Yeah, but that was something that I was like, you know, just like kind of like my nerd side. I was like really wondering like how much, because I knew my activity level was going to change a ton. Mm-hmm. Like I was basically immobilized.
Yeah.
You know, for sure from like lower body training, knee down until I was, you know, walking in a shoe, which was not for 4 months.
Yeah.
You know, I could basically sit on a leg extension or a leg curl. I could lay on my back and do like some hip extension movements, but like my lower body training was pretty non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
and just getting around in the gym. Like I was on a knee scooter for like months. So I'm like, how am I going to pick up a heavy, like I can't pick up a heavy dumbbell and put it in my little like carrying cart on the front of my knee scooter like that. Like it's not going to happen.
Yep.
But yeah, like the nerdy side of me is like, I really wonder like what a change in like training, for sure intensity and like really both volume was going to look like. And I did try to get in the gym, work out as much as I could, like smartly without like potentially risking
very minimal you can do.
Very minimal. And I was so happy with like how my body bounced back from that.
Yeah.
Like strength wise, some things didn't feel great after I like was able to start moving and stuff like,
but it's also, it didn't feel great to you. You know, this is the point, is kind of like, because you have a standard.
Yes.
Right? Like your standards here compared to like, if let's say the average person had the same injury as you.
Yep.
Right? And they had never done any training, they would be, I mean, decimated by that injury. Right.
And that is, so I was so happy with the way my body bounced back from it. And I attribute 100% of that to all of the, basically like all of the effort that had been put in prior. Cause I had put my body at so much of an advantage. Cause that's the whole thing when, if you have a big surgical intervention, basically is, you know, you're going to lose muscle mass, but if you have such a higher amount,
exactly,
the percentage that you lose is much more minimal. The people who do get in trouble clinically, like that we worry about, is like, you know, the already really frail person.
You have excess, basically.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And all of that comes with like the habitual nature of working out regularly and like preparing your body. You know, you don't ever think something bad's going to happen like that,
right,
but it could be a sickness. It could be anything like that. And that's where, you know, from a lifestyle standpoint, even if you don't love working out, there's benefits more than any aesthetic or any vanity thing that people want to, you know, kind of poo-poo when it comes to working out. It's, you're preparing yourself for basically anything life can throw at you.
There's so much research out there now about the longevity effects,
yes,
right? Like, I mean, longevity and
strength
mobility,
as a predictor of how long you can be independent.
Right, which is a predictor of
how long you're going to live.
Right?
Yeah, it's like,
nobody wants to live non-independently, right?
No.
So, I mean, how much of a life is that, right? So, yeah, I mean, I just think that people need to look at investing in their training at a young age, just like they think about investing their money at a young age. Like every single person that you meet when they're older wishes that they would have like put money into like their Roth IRA sooner, right? Like, or something like that, right? And there's not one person that's like, yeah, I wish I just boozed every day, spent all my money at the bars, right?
It's just absolute degen, and I went to the casino every night. It's like,
right. Or everybody's like, if I would have put like $1 every week into my Roth IRA, it'd be worth like $1 million today, right? That's like what the stories you hear, right?
Yeah.
But training's the same way. Like if you train when you're young, you build a base, man, you can, once you get into the real world and, you know, life hits and you got to work a job and you got to, you know, you have kids to take care of and you got bills to pay, you know, a wife to hang out with. I'm talking because this is us, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you still are gonna be pretty set, right?
Yes.
And you're gonna have a much easier time. Like we can both, you know, probably afford a pizza on Friday nights and like, you know, it's gonna be okay, right? Where, you know, some people really struggle. And I really attribute that to all the things that I've done leading up to now.
Yeah. And just the ability to like understand, like, you know, I have at least exposed my body to what hard physical things are.
Yep.
Versus like, you know, you hear about like the typical, whether it's like a weekend warrior type deal, like with exercise, or the person who's just like, well, you know, I've been telling my wife for 10 years that I was going to do this project and blah, blah, blah. And then they're just like just physically just destroyed. And it's
they're incapable.
And it's because there was no preparation.
Yep.
There was no thought to even be prepared,
One thing too, you mentioned how like doing hard things, like you said, like our lives aren't that physically demanding anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so I personally have a theory that I think a lot of like people's stress comes from a lack of exposure to stress, right? I think everything is pretty much a adaptation to exposure. So, like when you don't live a stressful life and then like a small thing happens to you, you freak out about it. If you live if you have a tough life and a lot of bad things happen along the way, you grow a lot more of a callus, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that those things happen in a vacuum as far as like physiological and mental.
No.
I think that, the example I give is like, dude, I trained so hard in college, so hard that when I would go to class, that was the easiest part of my day because I was resting. Like I would literally go to class and I'd be like, I'm in the lecture hall, right? And I'm just like, I don't care how hard this lecture is and how boring it is. It doesn't matter because I'm not in the gym right now killing my body.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I wouldn't have thought about it that way. I'd be like dreading going to class every day if I wasn't going to the gym and training so hard. So I think it can be our way of exposure therapy to, creating a little bit more of a difficult life so that we're prepared for when things are going to happen that, we're not always ready for, like, your injury or, there's things that happen in our lives mentally that we struggle with. And I think that those physiological benefits from training hard carry over to that.
Yes. I still remember, I mean, you basically just described like the lecture that I was in undergrad that honestly really changed how I look at what physical activity is for people. So I remember I was sitting in, it was probably like our exercise physiology 1, and the professor that was like my big time mentor, he talked about people, I think he used, because I've heard this analogy be used by different people, but I think he used like a sink. So basically everybody has this capacity to take on stress, and you call it a cup, call it a sink, whatever. But stress would be like water going into this space. Okay. So some people who choose their stress, so like exercise or, whether it's like,
there's mental things you can put yourself
for
through,
sure.
right?
Yeah. You use like some of the,
learning new things. That's like for me, it's like learning a new skill or reading a book where I'm trying to learn something, or even just going to school, right? I think is part of that.
But then like the people who actually like expose themselves to stress become more capable at dealing with that same stress. So like what used to be like, when you first start out training, like if you pour like a cup of water into that sink, 5 years into training, that's like you turn the spigot on and you turn the spigot off. It's like drops. Like that's how your body starts to interpret it.
Either you have a bigger sink now is the way you can look at it, or the sink drains way faster.
Sinks way faster. And our bodies, like, we don't really interpret like a physical stress and emotional stress. Like it's stress. It's always water going into whatever you want to call it. And then you either adapt to get better at dealing with it, or you see people who like, they don't adapt at all. And those are the people who we see that really struggle with like managing that stuff in a physical way. That would be like manifested as like your chronic injury type people. Okay. In like a sports realm, or you deal with like the emotional, like psychological side where like, they get stressed out a little bit easier than somebody else.
Yep.
From the exact same stress.
From something that's probably not a big deal.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things.
Yes.
Right.
So that's why I do think I still I want to choose my stress. And I have my bias towards, I like the physical activity side of it. I do know that it's changed my perspective on how I look at other stuff too. Like graduate school is difficult, but I know that, I have put myself in other difficult things like mentally.
Yep.
From a physical standpoint, like I'm mentally pushing myself, And I know that I have the capacity to get through something.
So we never got to what you would do differently about your training. What are kind of the big like things that if you had to go back and tell your younger self to do, what would it be differently? What it could be as simple as squat deeper. It could be, you know, like quit benching every day, like whatever, you know, what would be the big overarching things?
Honestly, I won't change a thing. I love that I've like I love that I've pushed myself in the things that I've done. Even looking back then, I'm like, I can't believe I thought that was like a freaking good idea.
Okay, let me rephrase. If you're training your kid,
yeah,
what are you going to have them do differently than what you did?
If my kid wanted to train really, really hard like that, I would make sure that I was stepping in as the voice of reason and like telling them like, I love that you're willing to train really hard, but we need to spend a lot more time. Like, what are we doing to like prepare ourselves to do this tomorrow?
Mobility recovery. Like prehab stuff.
Yeah. And honestly, I was super lucky with the exception of my Achilles surgery. Like I had like a shoulder overuse thing in college from playing baseball. Shocker. That happens a lot in that sport. But I've been really lucky. I will say that from like a like healthy relationship with exercise, like there definitely does need to be somebody in your corner who's like, you know, I know that training is really, really important to you, but like there can be other really important things too.
So basically what you're saying is you would
just
hope
provide a little bit of like balance. Yeah. Just somebody like
have a
to
coach
help steer the ship.
Or a mentor.
Yes.
Because that was the same thing when I first started training. I didn't have a coach either. Like I'm known for Max Zeta being my coach and having, you know, some pretty awesome coaches along the way. But when I first started training, I didn't have a coach, and that's when I probably developed a lot of the issues, the injuries that I really, because I never, by the time I got onto Team Juggernaut, I didn't do anything because I was already out of it. Like my body was out of it. So my point is like if I would have had a coach earlier, because the first thing Max did when he started coaching me, like, and he was like, basically send me what you're doing right now. He's like, this is dumb. He's like, this is just way too much volume. I mean, dude, I was doing 200 working reps of squats a week. 200 working reps, meaning basically 4 times a week I was doing 10 sets of 5 working reps, like not warm-ups, right? So anyways, like if I would have had a coach along the way to say, one, it's okay to take a day off if your elbows hurt or if your knees hurt, like it's smart. Like that's what with my athletes, you can ask them pretty much right away. It's like if they start getting some tendonitis, some inflammatory stuff, I'm like, you know, we're going to lay off of that for a week at least and see how it goes. Yeah. And they're always mad at me. They're like, no, it's not that bad. I'm like, no, but I know it's going to get worse. And we might as well do it now or we're going to have to take a month off, right?
And I think it's funny because basically if I could like from a, you know, 2020 hindsight view, I would have had somebody overseeing me from the start because I would have without question followed what they told me to do, and I would have done it to like the best of my abilities. And probably having somebody who honestly like emotionally and like
that's a big part of it.
Was detached because like I liked working hard and I had goals of like they were like some performance based things like
you identified as a hard worker too.
Yeah,
so like that was part of your identity.
Yeah, and like
so it's emotional for you.
In some ways it definitely can be. But yeah, just to somebody to kind of like put some guardrails on that training for me would have been really beneficial. However, I will say that it made me a better coach
100%
because I was able to recognize those things. And I cared a lot about the people that I was coaching and I didn't want them basically to make the same mistakes I did. You know, especially like the youth athletes that I got to work with. And you would even see it in some of like the adult clientele. You're like, you know, you're getting really, really into this and like you're loving it, but like I'm going to step in and be that voice of reason because I never had that voice of reason like in my corner. Again, I won't change it because it ended up being a positive for me as a coach. I definitely see myself kind of, it's going to bleed into my clinician side too.
Yep.
Because I'm going to be there to advocate for them. Cause like, I know you want to do this thing, but
you can relate.
Yes, I can relate. And I'm going to be there to like, if this is your goal, like, you know, you might think you're the one driving the bus, but like really like I'm kind of there, like making sure we stay in our lane and like we get to the destination.
I have the same, I think that being my own coach or just being self-taught for a lot of it made me a better coach. I think it made me probably a worse athlete long-term.
Yeah.
But because I think a lot of my best athletes are ones that I say jump, they say how high. Like it's kind of weird. They actually, some of my best athletes and the best athletes I've seen are not athletes that want to understand the whys. They're the athletes that don't care about the whys. They just do, and they don't overthink things. So I think if you want to be the best athlete you can be, just get a coach and listen. If you want to be the best coach someday, you need to understand the whys, which doing it on your own is going to help with that, or just really diving into that with your coach and the mentor that you have, right? So that's what I would say. We got to wrap it up. I want to ask you, what is your unfair advantage? So we ask this to everybody, right? What is the one thing that you, like the trait, the personality trait, it could be, or it could be a lot of different things. Just what is the one thing that you feel like you possess that makes you successful?
So I'm going to finish it with like one last story going back to the baseball program I played for. So we had our Big 10. So this was like the 10 values of the program. And one of them was Kaizen. So Kaizen basically just means like continuous and striving for continuous improvement every day in some way. Okay. And now our program, we looked at it as like, what are you doing on that day to become a better baseball player?
Right.
But I still take that principle with me every single day, you know, whether it be now, like as a husband to Kirsten, like, cause going to graduate school, like that is challenging, like time commitment wise, like how do you keep a strong relationship and then still like academically do everything you need to do? All of the other relationships in my life, like I try to be a little bit better version of myself in some way every day.
Yep.
And I'm so lucky, again, going back to like being in a good culture at a very impressionable age, because those values really did shape me. And I'm like so thankful for that. With that value paired with like me identifying myself as a hard worker, I think those two things just like sum up who I am as a person now. Like
it's a deadly combination. Yeah.
Because I want to work to become a better version of myself and like bring that to everybody who I see on a daily basis. And whether it's like, you know, in a personal relationship or in a family relationship, or when I get the opportunity to start working with people in a clinical setting, like I really hope that comes across, that I'm going to try to become a better version every time I get to interact with you. And that's awesome.
I think it does.
I think hopefully that will leave a positive lasting impression where I can make a lot of change for people for the better.
I think it does already, man. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Again.
Hopefully it's not like 100 degrees. Hopefully it's not like 100 degrees. Oh yeah, I'm ready to work out. Hopefully it's not 100 degrees next time though.
Yeah, sorry people. If we're sweating a little bit, if we're pitting out a little bit.
If the audience could see the setup though.
Yeah.
It's
kind of
nice.
legit.
It's nice. It's legit.
It's legit as in like it's a mess, but we're getting there, right?
It's coming along.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
So, all right, thanks Joe. We'll see you next time, man.
Sweet.